Have you ever found yourself staring at the world around you, feeling like there's something more to life that you just can't quite grasp? Have you ever wondered, in the quiet moments of reflection, what is the real meaning of all this, our struggles, our joys, our daily routines? If you've ever had these questions swirl around in your mind, you're not alone. In fact, humanity has grappled with this very question for centuries. But what if I told you that the answers you've been looking for aren't hidden in ancient texts or in the teachings of some far-off guru? What if the meaning of life isn't something you find, but something you experience? Today, we're diving into the revolutionary teachings of Jiddu Krishnamurti, one of the most profound philosophers of the 20th century. His life and teachings radically shifted the way we think about purpose, meaning, and existence. But here's the kicker: his ideas are not the typical do this, believe that teachings you might expect. They don't offer clear paths, guaranteed answers, or neatly wrapped up solutions. Instead, Krishnamurti challenges us to look within, to confront our own mind, to examine what it truly means to live. But before we get into that, I need your help. If you find the quest for meaning intriguing and the idea of questioning everything fascinating, make sure you hit that like button. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this message, and subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into the world of philosophy, truth, and personal growth. Your support means a lot, and if you're feeling generous, don't hesitate to hit that super thanks button to show some love and keep these insightful videos coming your way. Now, let's get back to Krishnamurti's ideas. Are you ready to challenge everything you thought you knew about life? To rethink how you approach your relationships, your work, and even your own sense of self? Well, hold on tight, because the journey we're about to take is going to shake up your perspective in ways you might never have imagined. Jiddu Krishnamurti, the renowned philosopher and spiritual teacher, proposed that the search for the meaning of life is one of humanity's most persistent questions. However, his views on this quest differ radically from conventional wisdom. While many philosophical and religious systems promise a clear, defined purpose or answer to the mystery of life, Krishnamurti contended that truth, and by extension the meaning of life, is something that cannot be found through traditional paths, doctrines, or authorities. His statement, "Truth is a pathless land," is perhaps the clearest expression of this thought. For him, the search for a concrete, predefined meaning of life is not only misguided but also detrimental to personal and spiritual growth. The foundational aspect of Krishnamurti's teachings revolves around the notion of liberation from the constraints imposed by external authorities, from societal expectations, and, perhaps most importantly, from the self-imposed limitations of our own minds. According to him, the meaning of life does not exist in any fixed form or external source. Instead, it emerges through a deeply personal understanding of the self. This is a profound challenge to many who feel comforted by systems of belief or structured paths that offer a sense of certainty and direction. Krishnamurti rejected the very idea of organized belief systems, whether religious, political, or social, as methods of guiding human life. In his view, these systems only reinforce division, dogma, and the perpetuation of false ideas. By their very nature, they shape the individual's worldview, often blindfolding them from seeing the truth of their own existence and the interconnectedness of all life. He believed that once people stop relying on external systems and open themselves to a direct, personal experience of life, they begin to glimpse the truth. This truth is not an intellectual concept but an existential reality that arises in the immediate experience of living without the filters of preconceptions and judgments. In order to understand the meaning of life, Krishnamurti urged individuals to look inward. This introspective process, he argued, should not be a search for answers, but rather a journey of exploration and awareness. The key, he suggested, is to approach life without the constraints of belief or the weight of societal conditioning. This freedom is what allows one to see life as it truly is, in all its complexity, beauty, and suffering. Without this freedom, we remain prisoners of our own minds, locked in repetitive patterns of thought and behavior that prevent us from living fully. Take, for example, the common desire for security and comfort that many people chase throughout their lives. Whether it's financial security, job stability, or the pursuit of fame, we often seek these external markers of success as a means of proving our worth or ensuring our happiness. Krishnamurti would argue that this constant search for external validation is a form of self-deception. We attach our sense of self to things that are fleeting and transient, thereby building our lives around false promises. By constantly looking outward, we fail to realize that the peace and fulfillment we seek can only be found within ourselves. This doesn't mean that Krishnamurti advocated for a form of nihilism or disengagement from the world. On the contrary, he believed in engaging with life fully and completely, but from a place of deep self-awareness and authenticity. For him, living in the present moment without the need for justification or external validation is the key to understanding the meaning of life. He often spoke about the importance of being free from the past and the future. The past, according to him, is simply a collection of memories and conditioning that shape our current perceptions, while the future is a projection based on fears or hopes that may never come to pass. To truly experience life, we must free ourselves from these constructs and live in the now, open to each moment as it unfolds. Krishnamurti's philosophy also placed great emphasis on the importance of relationships. He believed that true relationships, those not based on control, possessiveness, or expectation, are essential to understanding the meaning of life. In his view, love is not something we can strive for or acquire. It is a natural expression of living in harmony with others and the world around us. True love, for Krishnamurti, is unconditional. It arises spontaneously when we let go of the need to possess or control, allowing us to relate to others in their full humanity. Consider the example of a friendship. Often, people enter relationships with expectations. We may hope that the other person will fulfill our emotional needs, offer validation, or provide some kind of comfort. When these expectations are not met, we may feel disappointed or hurt. Krishnamurti would argue that these kinds of relationships are based on manipulation and not true love. Instead, he encouraged us to engage with others from a place of genuine care, without seeking anything in return. In this way, love becomes an action, not a concept. Krishnamurti also addressed the human tendency to seek meaning in ideologies and beliefs. People often turn to religion, philosophy, or political systems for a sense of purpose, believing that these structures will provide them with the answers they crave. But Krishnamurti cautioned that such systems can never provide lasting fulfillment. Instead, they serve to reinforce the divisions between people, perpetuate conformity, and limit the possibilities of human experience. For Krishnamurti, truth was not a matter of belief, but of direct perception. It was something that could only be experienced through self-awareness, free from the interference of ideologies and dogmas. One of the central teachings of Krishnamurti's philosophy is the rejection of authority in all forms. This does not mean that we should disregard the wisdom of others, but rather that we should not blindly follow anyone or anything. He emphasized the importance of questioning everything, including our own beliefs and assumptions. This process of questioning allows us to see beyond the limitations of our conditioning and to experience life in its true form. A relevant example of this can be found in the way people approach education. Many educational systems, particularly in the West, focus on teaching children what to think, rather than how to think. From an early age, students are conditioned to accept knowledge as absolute and unquestionable. This approach to learning stifles creativity and critical thinking, encouraging conformity rather than independent thought. Krishnamurti, on the other hand, believed that education should foster an atmosphere of inquiry, where students are encouraged to question everything and to discover truths for themselves. In this kind of educational system, the role of the teacher is not to impart knowledge, but to facilitate the student's own exploration and understanding. Krishnamurti's rejection of authority also extends to the way we view ourselves. Most of us are conditioned from a young age to see ourselves through the lens of labels, whether it's our social status, our job, our family role, or our nationality. These labels shape our identity, often leading us to believe that we are defined by these external factors. Krishnamurti would argue that this is a form of mental slavery, as it limits our understanding of who we truly are. True freedom, in his view, comes when we are able to see ourselves as we are, without the constraints of external labels or definitions. Another key aspect of Krishnamurti's teachings is the emphasis on living without the pursuit of goals. Most people live their lives with a clear sense of destination. They set goals, pursue them, and measure their worth by their ability to achieve those goals. But Krishnamurti believed that this constant striving is an obstacle to true living. He suggested that life itself is the goal, and that when we focus too much on the future, we miss the richness of the present moment. In this sense, he saw life not as something to be achieved, but as something to be fully experienced, moment by moment. Throughout his life, Krishnamurti traveled the world, giving talks and engaging in dialogues with people from all walks of life. His teachings resonated with individuals from a wide range of backgrounds: artists, scientists, spiritual seekers, and everyday people alike. What made his message so compelling was its universality. It was not confined to any one culture or religion. It spoke to the core of what it means to be human. In the end, the meaning of life, according to Krishnamurti, is not something that can be discovered through external sources, nor is it something that can be easily defined or quantified. It is something that arises when we free ourselves from the constraints of our minds, when we live fully in the present, and when we approach life with openness, love, and awareness. The journey to understanding the meaning of life is not a quest for answers, but a process of deep inquiry, free from the illusions of the past and the expectations of the future. It is, in essence, a pathless journey, one that requires us to step outside of our conditioned ways of thinking and to experience the world anew. In all its beauty and complexity, Jiddu Krishnamurti's life is one of remarkable contrast, defined by an early promise of spiritual greatness followed by a dramatic rejection of the very foundations that were expected to define his future. Born in Madnapal, India, on May 11, 1895, Krishnamurti's childhood was far from ordinary. Raised in a modest family, his early life was shaped by the spiritual framework of his culture. However, his destiny would soon be influenced by the Theosophical Society, an organization dedicated to the search for truth and the unification of all religions. The society had identified him as the world teacher, a title that foretold a messianic mission of spiritual renewal for humanity. From a young age, Krishnamurti was thrust into an educational system designed to prepare him for a global role that few could ever imagine. His education was not one of typical childhood experiences, but a deliberate and focused preparation for leadership, infused with the ideals of philosophy, spirituality, and languages. Yet, as Krishnamurti grew older, he began to question the very foundations of the life that had been so meticulously planned for him. While the Theosophists believed that Krishnamurti was destined to deliver humanity from its spiritual ignorance, he himself found the idea of leading others down a predetermined path to truth troubling. His internal conflict reached a crescendo in 1929, at the age of 34, when Krishnamurti publicly renounced the role that had been imposed upon him. In a speech that would go down in history, he declared, "Truth is a pathless land." These words marked a radical departure from the expectations of both the Theosophical Society and the broader spiritual community. By rejecting this position, Krishnamurti was making a powerful statement. Truth, for him, was not something that could be discovered through adherence to a specific path or a set of beliefs. It was not something that could be taught by a guru or revealed by an institution. Instead, it was something that each person had to find for themselves, independent of dogma, tradition, or authority. In this moment of rejection, Krishnamurti was not just severing ties with the organization that had supported him. He was challenging the entire structure of organized religion and spiritual authority. His declaration that truth is a pathless land became a central tenet of his teachings, a call for individuals to liberate themselves from the constraints of external systems of belief and to seek truth within themselves. For Krishnamurti, the search for truth was not about finding answers that had already been handed down by others. It was about experiencing life in its purest form, unfiltered by the biases and expectations imposed by external authorities. This decision to break from the Theosophical Society was not a retreat from spirituality, but rather an evolution of Krishnamurti's personal understanding of truth. He spent the remainder of his life traveling the world, engaging in dialogues with people from all walks of life. Whether speaking to small groups or large audiences, Krishnamurti's focus was not on providing ready-made answers, but on encouraging others to explore their own minds, to question the assumptions and conditioning that shaped their lives. He did not want followers who would accept his teachings without question. He wanted interlocutors who would join him in the ongoing process of inquiry, questioning, and discovery. Krishnamurti's life was a continual process of exploration and dialogue, where the questions he posed were often more important than the answers he offered. In his view, the process of asking the right questions, of deeply exploring one's own thoughts, fears, and motivations, was more crucial than any external system of belief or ideology. His teachings emphasized the importance of direct, personal experience, which he believed was the only true path to understanding. For Krishnamurti, the goal was not to become enlightened or attain a specific spiritual state, but to live fully in the present, free from the illusions and distortions created by our conditioned minds. One of the most striking aspects of Krishnamurti's teachings is his rejection of the notion that there is a singular, definitive answer to the mysteries of life. He consistently emphasized that truth could not be encapsulated by a set of beliefs, a religious tradition, or a philosophical system. For Krishnamurti, truth was something that existed in the moment, beyond words and concepts. He often spoke of the need to live in the present, to engage with life directly and fully, without the interference of past conditioning or future expectations. This emphasis on living in the moment was not about abandoning responsibility or striving for personal goals. Rather, it was about releasing the grip of the mind that constantly projects itself into the future or dwells in the past. The present moment, he believed, was the only place where true understanding could arise. Krishnamurti's philosophy found resonance not just among spiritual seekers, but also among those in the fields of education and psychology. In the 1960s, he settled in California, where he established a foundation to preserve and disseminate his teachings. This foundation played a crucial role in bringing Krishnamurti's ideas to a global audience, ensuring that his message of self-awareness, freedom of thought, and personal exploration would continue to inspire future generations. In addition to his lectures and writings, Krishnamurti also sought to impact the world of education. He believed that traditional educational systems, with their rigid structures and emphasis on conformity, were fundamentally flawed. Instead of fostering creativity, critical thinking, and personal exploration, Krishnamurti argued that these systems often stifled individuality and imposed a narrow worldview. The schools that Krishnamurti founded in different parts of the world, such as the Krishnamurti schools in India, England, and the United States, were designed to offer an alternative to the traditional education system. These schools were based on the principles of freedom of thought, self-awareness, and a focus on the development of the whole person. The goal of these institutions was not to produce students who could memorize facts and regurgitate information, but to cultivate individuals who could think for themselves, question everything, and approach life with a sense of open-mindedness and curiosity. The curriculum was not based on standardized tests or rigid academic structures, but was instead focused on nurturing a deep, personal understanding of life, encouraging students to engage with the world in a meaningful and thoughtful way. One of Krishnamurti's key ideas about education was that it should not be about preparing individuals for a life of obedience and conformity, but about fostering independent thought. He believed that education should empower students to explore their own minds, to examine the influences and assumptions that shape their understanding of the world, and to discover their own truth. In his view, the best education was one that did not impose fixed answers, but instead encouraged a process of continuous questioning, self-reflection, and discovery. This approach to education was radical for its time and continues to inspire educators and philosophers today. Despite his advanced age, Krishnamurti continued to travel and lecture until shortly before his death in 1986. His health may have declined, but his commitment to the exploration of truth and the encouragement of free thought never wavered. He passed away in California, leaving behind a legacy that would continue to influence countless individuals in the years to come. His teachings, which emphasize the importance of self-awareness, personal responsibility, and the rejection of external authority, are as relevant today as they were during his lifetime. His life was a testament to the power of questioning, of living freely, and of seeking truth without the constraints of dogma or tradition. Through his dialogues, his writings, and the schools he established, Krishnamurti's message lives on, offering a profound invitation to explore the nature of life and to live fully in the present, free from the burdens of the past or the expectations of the future. For centuries, the question of life's meaning has consumed the minds of philosophers, theologians, and everyday individuals alike. It's one of those timeless, universal questions that feels almost inherent to the human condition. From ancient texts to modern-day self-help books, the search for meaning is a fundamental part of our existence. Why are we here? What is the point of it all? These questions often emerge when we feel disconnected from the world around us, when our daily routines start to feel monotonous or empty, and when the pursuit of material or external goals no longer brings the sense of fulfillment we once hoped for. The desire for meaning is not merely intellectual, it is deeply emotional, rooted in the human quest for purpose and understanding. However, Krishnamurti, a philosopher who rejected traditional frameworks of thought and spirituality, proposed a radically different perspective on the search for meaning in life. He believed that our constant search for meaning often stems from a dissatisfaction with the present. This dissatisfaction, he argued, arises from our inability to fully engage with life as it is. Many of us are constantly looking outside ourselves for something to fill the void we feel, whether it be a specific purpose, an external goal, or even a belief system. The underlying issue, according to Krishnamurti, is that we're often running away from the very thing that holds the key to understanding life, ourselves. In Krishnamurti's view, the search for meaning can be a form of escape, a way of avoiding the discomfort of confronting the reality of who we are. We look for answers outside of ourselves because facing the complexity of our own inner world is often too difficult. It's easier to cling to an idea of meaning, a philosophy, or a set of beliefs, hoping that they will provide the clarity we seek. But Krishnamurti insisted that this search for external meaning was ultimately a distraction. The real task of life, he argued, is not to find an answer or purpose out there, but to look inward, to explore the depths of our own consciousness, and to face the uncomfortable truths about ourselves. At the core of Krishnamurti's philosophy is the notion of self-awareness and awareness that is not limited to a superficial understanding of who we think we are, but one that penetrates deeper into the layers of conditioning, fear, and judgment that define our everyday existence. He believed that without self-awareness, we could never hope to understand the true nature of life. Instead, we would continue to live in the shadows of our own mental projections, constantly seeking fulfillment through external means, and never truly experiencing life as it is. Krishnamurti's perspective on self-awareness is not merely intellectual or abstract. It is a practical approach to living. To truly understand life, we must first be willing to look deeply within ourselves, to question the beliefs, assumptions, and fears that govern our thoughts and actions. This is no easy task. It requires courage to confront our own prejudices, fears, and insecurities, those parts of ourselves that we often try to avoid or deny. Most of us are conditioned to look away from discomfort, to numb ourselves with distractions, or to project our fears onto the world around us. But Krishnamurti taught that only by looking inward, without judgment or preconception, can we begin to see things as they really are. When we stop labeling and judging, when we cease trying to categorize everything into neat boxes of right and wrong, good and bad, we can begin to perceive life in its raw, unfiltered form. In this state of clarity, we can experience the essence of life itself, its richness, its complexity, and its beauty. It is in this moment, when we shed the layers of our conditioned thinking, that we can begin to see the truth of our existence. And it is this truth, free from the distortions of our mental projections, that offers us a deeper sense of meaning and fulfillment than any external search could ever provide. Krishnamurti's approach to the search for meaning is often seen as counterintuitive. After all, much of human culture is built around the idea that meaning must be sought and discovered, that it is something to be attained or achieved. We are taught to set goals, to pursue dreams, and to look for purpose in the things we do. This external approach to meaning can be seen everywhere, from the career-driven individual who seeks success, to the religious devotee who seeks enlightenment, to the philosopher who searches for ultimate truth. But Krishnamurti would argue that all of these pursuits, while valuable in their own right, can become distractions from the deeper, more fundamental task of understanding ourselves. Take, for example, the story of a successful businessman who has spent his life climbing the corporate ladder, amassing wealth, and achieving the markers of success that society deems important. On the outside, he seems to have it all: money, power, status. Yet, deep inside, he feels a sense of emptiness, as though something is missing. He begins to ask himself, is this all there is to life? What is the point of it all? At first, he believes that the answer lies in achieving even greater success, perhaps a bigger house, more money, or a higher position at work. But no matter how much he acquires, the emptiness persists. Eventually, he realizes that the meaning he's been seeking cannot be found in the accumulation of things or the achievement of goals. Instead, it lies in understanding himself, the fears, desires, and beliefs that drive his actions, the conditioning that governs his thinking, and the ways in which he avoids confronting the discomfort of his own inner world. Only when he turns inward, as Krishnamurti would suggest, does he begin to experience a deeper sense of meaning, one that is not dependent on external achievements or societal approval. Another example can be found in the spiritual seeker who spends years meditating, reading sacred texts, and seeking enlightenment. Like the businessman, the seeker is driven by a sense of dissatisfaction, believing that there is something greater to be found in the pursuit of spirituality. But despite all the practices, all the rituals, and all the striving for transcendence, the seeker feels no closer to the truth. Krishnamurti would say that this is because the seeker is looking outside of themselves for something that can only be discovered within. True spiritual awakening, in his view, does not come from following a set of prescribed practices or doctrines, but from a radical self-awareness that sees through the illusions of the mind and the ego. What Krishnamurti is pointing to is a radical shift in the way we think about meaning. Instead of seeing life as something to be understood through external means, he suggests that the key to understanding life is in understanding ourselves. The meaning of life, in this view, is not something we must search for, nor is it something we can find by following a predetermined path. It is something that emerges naturally when we begin to see life in its entirety, free from the filters of our conditioning, fears, and judgments. The process of self-awareness is not something that happens overnight. It is not a goal to be achieved or a destination to be reached. It is an ongoing process, one that requires constant attention and mindfulness. But it is also the only path that can lead to a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world around us. As Krishnamurti often said, the day you stop searching is the day you begin to find. In other words, it is only when we stop looking for answers outside ourselves that we can begin to experience life as it truly is, whole, complete, and full of meaning. Krishnamurti's teachings weren't limited to abstract spiritual or philosophical ideas. He was deeply concerned with the way human beings interact with one another, and he believed that the meaning of life is fundamentally tied to the quality of our relationships. In fact, he placed a great deal of emphasis on the concept of authentic relationships, seeing them as essential to our understanding of life and the world around us. To Krishnamurti, relationships were not just a means of social interaction, but a profound avenue for personal growth and discovery. It was through the way we relate to others that we could truly understand ourselves and the nature of existence. At the heart of authentic relationships, according to Krishnamurti, is love. He didn't view love as something that could be cultivated through effort, nor as an ideal to be achieved or an object to be pursued. Instead, he saw love as a natural force that arises when we live in harmony with the world. For him, love wasn't something to strive for or to obtain. It's not something that can be taught through instruction or learned through practice, because it exists innately when we free ourselves from the conditioning that clouds our ability to connect with others genuinely. It's a state of being, not an act of doing. In today's world, love is often misunderstood. We live in a culture that commercializes and commodifies love, whether through romantic movies, advertisements, or social media. Love is often portrayed as something you can earn, chase, or possess. This concept of love, however, is in stark contrast to Krishnamurti's understanding. He argued that love, in its true form, isn't about possession or control. It's not about using another person to fulfill our emotional needs or to validate our sense of self-worth. Instead, love is about connection that transcends the ego and is free from selfish motives. Krishnamurti's perspective on love was radically different from the mainstream understanding that we encounter in everyday life. Many of us are conditioned to think of love as something that we must work to obtain. From a young age, we are taught to seek validation and approval from others. We are taught to find love in specific relationships, whether familial, romantic, or platonic, and we come to believe that love exists within these defined parameters. However, Krishnamurti challenges this by pointing out that love does not reside in any one individual or type of relationship. True love, he argued, is not bound by labels, expectations, or the need for reciprocal fulfillment. It doesn't arise because someone meets our desires or provides us with validation. Instead, love is simply a force that exists when we are open, honest, and authentic with others. He emphasized that love is not about needing someone to fulfill a role in our lives. We often enter relationships with preconceived notions of what the other person should be or do for us. Romantic relationships, for example, are frequently burdened with expectations that the partner will fulfill us, complete us, or make us happy. These ideas, Krishnamurti suggests, are rooted in a deep misunderstanding of love. When we approach relationships from a place of need, we are looking to possess or control the other person, rather than connect with them authentically. True love, on the other hand, is about being present with the other person without any conditions. It's about being open to the other person as they are, without trying to change them or impose our own desires and expectations upon them. One of Krishnamurti's most profound insights about love was his belief that true love could only arise when we let go of the need to control others. Control is often rooted in fear of losing the other person, fear of not being enough, fear of vulnerability. When we operate from a place of fear, we hold tightly to our relationships, trying to shape them according to our own insecurities and desires. But Krishnamurti argues that love is the opposite of fear. It's only when we are free of the need to control, manipulate, or possess someone that we can truly love them. Love, in this sense, is liberating. It is the freedom to be ourselves and to allow the other person to be themselves, without interference, judgment, or expectation. To illustrate this idea, let's consider the example of a friendship. Many people enter friendships with a subconscious expectation of what they want or need from the other person. We expect them to provide us with support, affirmation, or companionship. While these are all important aspects of a healthy friendship, the moment we start to view the friendship as a transactional relationship where we are constantly assessing whether or not our needs are being met, love starts to fade. Authentic friendship, Krishnamurti would say, comes from a place of genuine care and mutual respect, not from a desire to get something out of the relationship. It's the willingness to listen, to be present, and to offer support without expecting anything in return. It's about showing up for the other person, not because we want something from them, but because we genuinely care for their well-being. This selfless approach to relationships, according to Krishnamurti, is what allows love to flourish. Another key point Krishnamurti makes is that love cannot exist in relationships that are rooted in competition or comparison. In many relationships, we are constantly comparing ourselves to others, whether it's our partners, friends, or family members. We compare our achievements, our appearance, or even our feelings, and in doing so, we create division and separation. Krishnamurti argued that love cannot exist in such an environment. Love, he said, thrives in an atmosphere of mutual respect and understanding, not in one of competition and comparison. When we stop comparing ourselves to others, we allow love to flow freely between us. We no longer view others as a means to our own validation, but as individuals with their own unique journey and struggles. In this space, authentic relationships can form, where both parties are free to be themselves without the pressure to measure up to some external standard. Moreover, Krishnamurti emphasized that the key to authentic love is vulnerability. In order to truly connect with someone, we must be willing to open ourselves up, to be seen in our raw, unfiltered state. This requires a level of courage to let go of our defenses, our walls, and the masks we wear to protect ourselves from hurt. Many of us avoid true intimacy because we are afraid of being hurt, rejected, or misunderstood. However, Krishnamurti taught that it is only through vulnerability that we can experience genuine connection. When we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, we invite the other person to do the same, creating a space where authentic love can emerge. Love, in Krishnamurti's worldview, is a transformative force. It's not something that can be controlled, contained, or manipulated for personal gain. True love arises naturally when we live authentically, without the need to impress, control, or possess others. It's the love that flows freely when we stop seeing people as objects to be used for our own purposes and start seeing them as beings with their own needs, desires, and humanity. When we approach relationships in this way, with openness, honesty, and vulnerability, we invite love to grow and transform our lives. It is in these moments of authentic connection, Krishnamurti believed, that the true meaning of life reveals itself not in grand ideas, not in grand gestures, but in the simple, everyday acts of love and understanding. Let's explore two stories that resonate with the core of Krishnamurti's philosophy, shedding light on how his ideas about love, perception, and self-awareness unfold in everyday life. The first story is that of the gardener's gift, a simple yet profound narrative that captures the essence of Krishnamurti's teachings about love and the selfless nature of true care. The gardener, in this story, spends his days tending to his plants with unwavering dedication. He waters them, not because he expects anything in return, but because it is an act of pure love and attention. His care is unconditional, rooted in his own love for life and growth, without the need for recognition or compensation. When a traveler notices the lush health of the plants and inquires about his motivation, the gardener's response is simple: "When I give them my attention, I see them grow in ways I never imagined. They don't ask for anything in return, and neither do I." This story serves as a perfect metaphor for Krishnamurti's perspective on love. Love, in this context, is not transactional. It's not about seeking something from others, nor is it about expecting recognition or gratitude. The gardener's care is given freely, without condition, which reflects Krishnamurti's view that love is not something that can be earned or bought, but something that arises naturally when we let go of our ego and expectations. Just as the gardener's care brings life to the plants, true love nourishes and grows relationships, without the need for control or rewards. It is an act of giving, not receiving. In a world where people often struggle with transactional relationships where every gesture seems to have an expected return, Krishnamurti's teaching here is radical. He encourages us to shift our perspective on love, to give it freely and selflessly, much like the gardener who finds fulfillment not in the fruits of his labor, but in the simple act of nurturing. In many ways, Krishnamurti's message is an invitation to be more present in our interactions, to cultivate relationships based not on what we can gain from others, but on the joy of sharing our presence and attention. The gardener does not care about the outcome of his actions. Similarly, in our relationships, when we focus on the act of loving, rather than on what we might get from it, we create the space for genuine connection and growth. This is a poignant reminder that love does not need validation. It simply exists, expressed through our actions and presence in the world. The second story, The Artist's True Vision, delves into Krishnamurti's belief about perception, identity, and the layers of conditioning that shape how we see the world and ourselves. In this story, an artist paints a portrait of a man, capturing every detail of his face with precision. However, when the man sees the portrait, he is dissatisfied. "This is not me," he exclaims. "The expression in my eyes is wrong. The colors don't reflect the truth of who I am." The artist, upon hearing the criticism, calmly responds, "I didn't paint you as you are. I painted you as I see you, what you truly are beneath the surface." This story serves as a metaphor for Krishnamurti's insight that our perception of ourselves and the world is clouded by the conditioning of our minds, by the expectations, beliefs, and judgments we accumulate over a lifetime. When the man looks at the portrait, he doesn't see himself. He sees an image of himself shaped by his own preconceptions, his own self-judgments. He is unable to accept the depiction because it challenges the image he has of himself, an image built on layers of social conditioning, cultural expectations, and personal beliefs. In contrast, the artist's vision is unclouded by such conditioning. He sees the man not as the world has told him to see him, but as he perceives him in that moment, free from judgment or expectation. Krishnamurti's teachings about perception echo deeply in this story. He argued that much of our suffering arises from the way we see the world through the lens of our own conditioning. We have learned to view ourselves and others in certain ways that are often shaped by society, culture, and personal experiences, and these conditioned perceptions create barriers to understanding the true nature of things. Just as the man in the story cannot accept the artist's version of him, we too often fail to see things as they truly are, because we are blinded by the filters of our past experiences and beliefs. The artist's response to the man's critique offers a powerful lesson about the need to question our perceptions and judgments. To truly understand ourselves and others, we must first strip away the layers of conditioning that distort our view of the world. Krishnamurti urged his followers to question everything, especially the way they see themselves. He believed that self-awareness and clarity could only come when we stop identifying with the stories and beliefs we have constructed about ourselves. Only then can we see life as it truly is, without the distortion of judgment, expectation, and fear. This story also illustrates Krishnamurti's idea that real understanding comes from looking at things without preconceptions. Much like the artist's unfiltered gaze, understanding requires a level of detachment from our conditioned responses. The artist does not paint a correct version of the man, but an honest, authentic portrayal based on his perception of the man's inner essence. In our own lives, we must learn to look at ourselves and others with this same clarity, free from the labels and judgments that typically cloud our vision. Only through this kind of clear seeing can we begin to understand the truth of who we are and the world around us. Both stories underscore a central tenet of Krishnamurti's teachings: the importance of seeing life without the distortions of conditioning. The gardener's selfless love is an example of how we can approach our relationships and interactions with others without selfish desires or expectations. The artist's true vision illustrates the need to see beyond the surface, to look deeper into ourselves and others, free from the layers of judgment that cloud our understanding. Both stories encourage us to live in a state of awareness and clarity, free from the constraints of our conditioned minds. For many of us, this is a challenging and ongoing process. Our perceptions are shaped by years of cultural conditioning, social expectations, and personal experiences. To see life clearly, as Krishnamurti suggested, requires a willingness to question everything we think we know about ourselves and the world. It means unlearning the patterns and beliefs that no longer serve us and embracing a new way of seeing, one that is more attuned to the present moment and to the true nature of things. Krishnamurti's teachings urge us to break free from the prison of our conditioned minds. Like the gardener who loves freely and without expectation, we too can learn to love without needing anything in return. Like the artist who sees beyond the surface, we can cultivate the ability to perceive the world clearly, without the filters of judgment and expectation. By doing so, we open ourselves to a deeper understanding of life, one that is not based on preconceived notions or external validation, but on the simple, authentic experience of living in harmony with the world. These stories remind us that true love and understanding are not things we can seek outside of ourselves. They are inherent qualities that arise naturally when we free ourselves from the constraints of ego, expectation, and conditioning. when we live with awareness, when we look at others with genuine care and understanding, when we let go of the need to control or possess, we create the space for love to flourish. This is the heart of Krishnamurti's teachings, the invitation to live fully, freely, and authentically, without the distortions of the mind and the limitations of the ego. Krishnamurti's philosophy offers a radical departure from conventional thinking about the meaning of life. His teachings challenge the very idea that life's meaning can be found through external structures, religions, or predefined goals. Instead, Krishnamurti believed that the search for meaning is a journey inward towards self-awareness, direct experience, and a deep engagement with the present moment. According to him, the essence of life is not something that can be grasped through intellectual understanding or religious doctrine. It is something that can only be known through living it fully and authentically, free from the filters of past conditioning, societal expectations, and rigid beliefs. One of Krishnamurti's most profound insights is that the meaning of life is not a fixed destination or goal that one must achieve, but an ongoing process that unfolds in the present moment. In his view, the quest for meaning often arises out of a deep sense of dissatisfaction with the mundane routines of daily life. People search for purpose because they feel as though something is missing, that there must be more to existence than the repetitive cycles of work, relationships, and social obligations. However, Krishnamurti argued that this search for a grand purpose or external meaning often becomes a distraction, an escape from confronting the truth of our own existence. He pointed out that many people, driven by a sense of dissatisfaction, turn to external sources, religions, philosophies, goals, and ideals in the hopes of finding something greater. But this search, Krishnamurti believed, is not the answer. The external world can never provide the fulfillment we seek because the real challenge of life lies within us. The search for external meaning often represents a flight from the deeper, more immediate task of self-exploration and self-understanding. Rather than seeking answers outside, Krishnamurti urged us to turn inward, to examine our own thoughts, feelings, and beliefs, and to approach life with complete awareness and openness. It is only by understanding ourselves deeply without judgment or preconception that we can come to a true understanding of life and its meaning. This brings us to Krishnamurti's emphasis on self-awareness as the cornerstone of his philosophy. According to him, understanding life is not about intellectual analysis or adhering to a set of prescribed beliefs. It's about being aware of our own mind, its patterns, and the conditioning that shapes our perceptions. Self-awareness involves being fully present in each moment, noticing our thoughts and reactions without labeling or judging them. It requires us to be conscious of how our past experiences, our fears, and our desires influence the way we see the world and interact with others. For Krishnamurti, self-awareness is not just an intellectual exercise. It is a way of living. It involves seeing the world as it is, free from the distortions of our own desires, judgments, and societal conditioning. When we observe ourselves and the world around us with this kind of clarity, we are no longer trapped by the illusions and expectations that dominate our everyday lives. We are able to experience life directly, without the barriers created by our ego or preconceived notions. In this state of awareness, the true meaning of life becomes apparent not as an abstract concept or a destination to be reached, but as something that is constantly unfolding in the present moment. Krishnamurti's rejection of external authorities and fixed paths to truth is one of the most radical aspects of his philosophy. In his famous declaration, "Truth is a pathless land," he rejected the idea that there is a singular, predefined path to enlightenment or spiritual fulfillment. He argued that all organized systems of thought, whether religious, philosophical, or political, create limitations on the mind and prevent us from experiencing life directly. According to Krishnamurti, truth cannot be found in any established system or tradition because these systems are the product of human conditioning and thought. Truth, he believed, is something that can only be discovered through individual exploration, free from the constraints of tradition or authority. This notion of a pathless land is not one of confusion or nihilism. Rather, it invites us to explore life without the need for a roadmap. In a world where people are constantly searching for certainty, answers, and clear directions, Krishnamurti's teaching is a call to embrace uncertainty and live fully in the present moment. Instead of being guided by external doctrines or systems of belief, we are invited to explore life with an open mind and heart, free from the expectations of others and from the desire for personal gain. Krishnamurti's approach to love also plays a central role in his vision of the meaning of life. For him, love is not an ideal to be pursued or a goal to be achieved. It is a natural expression of our deep connection to the world and to each other. Love, as Krishnamurti understood it, is not about attachment, possession, or control, but about genuine care and understanding. Love manifests in the simplest acts that arise from an authentic connection to others, without any ulterior motive or expectation of return. This understanding of love challenges many of the conventional ideas about relationships that are prevalent in society. In a culture where love is often seen as something that must be earned or pursued, Krishnamurti's teaching invites us to reconsider what love truly is. Love, in his view, is not something we can strive for or attain. It is something that arises naturally when we are free from the constraints of our own desires, fears, and expectations. True love is unconditional, selfless, and non-possessive. It is not about getting something from others, but about giving freely and without expectation. In this sense, Krishnamurti's view of love is deeply connected to his ideas about self-awareness and freedom. When we are truly aware of ourselves and our own patterns of thought and behavior, we are able to act in a way that is free from the need for validation or control, and we are able to love others in a way that is pure and unconditional. Krishnamurti's teachings also challenge our assumptions about relationships and the nature of human connection. In his view, true relationships are not built on dependency, possession, or expectation, but on mutual understanding and respect. He encouraged people to engage with each other in a way that is free from the influence of social conditioning, free from the need to control or manipulate, and free from the pressure to conform to societal expectations. Authentic relationships, according to Krishnamurti, are those in which individuals are able to connect with one another in a way that is open, honest, and free from judgment. These relationships are not defined by the roles we play or the labels we assign to each other, but by the genuine connection that exists between us. One of the most profound aspects of Krishnamurti's philosophy is his invitation to live without the burden of expectations. In a world where people are constantly seeking purpose and meaning, Krishnamurti suggests that we can find true fulfillment not by searching for answers, but by living fully in the present moment. He teaches that we don't need to constantly strive for a greater purpose or a more meaningful life. Instead, we can find meaning in the very act of living, in our ability to be present and aware in each moment. This approach to life is liberating. It frees us from the endless cycle of searching for external meaning and allows us to experience the richness and depth of existence as it is. It encourages us to let go of the need for achievement, recognition, and validation, and to simply live fully, without fear or hesitation. In this way, Krishnamurti's philosophy offers a path to true freedom from the constraints of the mind, freedom from the expectations of society, and freedom from the need to define life by external standards. In conclusion, Krishnamurti's teachings offer a profound invitation to explore life without the constraints of tradition, dogma, or external authority. His philosophy encourages us to turn inward, to look deeply at ourselves and our perceptions, and to embrace the present moment with clarity, love, and self-awareness. Through this process, we come to understand that the meaning of life is not something to be found outside of ourselves, but something that arises naturally when we live authentically and without fear. The true path to understanding life is through direct experience, free from the distractions of external searches and the illusions of the mind. When we embrace this approach, we open ourselves to the profound beauty and meaning of life as it is. As we reach the end of this journey through Jiddu Krishnamurti's profound philosophy, I hope you found some new ideas to ponder. Krishnamurti didn't offer a roadmap to the meaning of life, but instead, he gave us the tools to create our own path. His teachings challenge us to stop seeking answers outside of ourselves and start living in the present moment with full awareness. According to Krishnamurti, life isn't about a destination, it's about the quality of how we experience each moment. It's not about chasing after meaning, but understanding and living it right now. The truth, as Krishnamurti so famously put it, is a pathless land. There's no set route, no guidebook, and certainly no destination you can reach by following someone else's teachings. Instead, it's about your own journey, a journey of self-awareness, authenticity, and radical freedom. When you start to live like this, when you stop looking for external validation and begin to listen deeply to yourself, the true meaning of life begins to reveal itself. It's an ongoing discovery, a moment-to-moment unfolding of truth. But this is just the beginning. Now that you have these ideas in your mind, it's up to you to take them and see how they fit into your own life. What will you discover about yourself and the world around you? How will you begin to live more authentically, more fully? Before you go, please take a moment to like this video if you found Krishnamurti's teachings thought-provoking, and share it with anyone who might be questioning their own sense of purpose. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more in-depth explorations of philosophical ideas that challenge the status quo. And if you've gained something valuable from this video today, consider sending a super thanks to help us continue bringing you content that makes you think, grow, and live better. Let's walk together, free from the constraints of tradition, free from the search for external answers, and embrace the beauty of life as it is. Thanks for being here, and I'll see you in the next one.